Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here, and my name is Brian, and today we're talking about a group of Kino titles. I was going to say hodgepodge, maybe. It's a lot of various stuff here. Some drama, some action, some westerns, and a 4K. And we'll start with that 4K. That 4K would be Staying Alive, and this is from 1983. It is the follow-up to Saturday Night Fever, the great success of Saturday Night Fever, which was directed by John Badham, a director I enjoy very much. This film obviously also stars John Travolta, reprising his role as Tony Manero, is directed by Sylvester Stallone. So, very different director in my mind, certainly a capable one. And this film feels a bit more 80s than 70s. It's dealing with the Tony Manero character now trying to make his way as a dancer on the Broadway stage. So he's gone out of the nightclubs into a more professional setting, and he's finding a great deal less success. And the movie opens, by the way, with a song by Frank Stallone, brother of Sly Stallone, who also has a part in the movie, and he plays on stage. He's definitely helping his brother out, emphasizing some of his musical work, which, if you didn't know, Frank Stallone, a pretty accomplished recording artist, as well as an actor. But I'm curious so this is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master, and this looks very nice. Almost to the point that I thought it was scrubbed, but I think the grain structure is still there. It just is a really solid HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of the original 35mm camera negative. It says 5 years later, and Tony Manero's Saturday Night Fever is still burning. Now he's strutting towards his biggest challenge yet, making it as a dancer on the Broadway stage. Screen legend John Travolta is larger than life as he recreates his iconic character in this spectacularly visual musical that also sizzles with sensational performances by Cynthia Rhodes, who was in Flashdance and Dirty Dancing. She's a dancer actor. And Finola Hughes as the women in Tony's life. Like its predecessor, Staying Alive pulsates with the groove-powered excitement of 5 new Bee Gees songs. I buried the lead there. I should have mentioned that. Plus Frank Stallone's high-intensity scoring, which includes his hit Far From Over. Now, that's the song I mentioned that starts the movie. And is a song you will definitely recognize when you hear it, for whatever reason. It says, and watch closely to catch a Hitchcockian cameo appearance by producer, director, writer, superstar Sly Stallone. Yeah, I did catch that. It's a quick blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. But yeah, it's a different movie than Saturday Night Fever. It's like more of a struggling actor, struggling performer movie. And, Travolta's giving it his all. He's really going for it in terms of the dancing, and both Cynthia Rhodes and Finola Hughes are also good dancers. Cynthia Rhodes specifically is, I think, specifically a dancer-actor and was only in dancing movies, but she's very good in this as sort of the, I don't want to use the word side piece, but that's sort of the role that she's been given. She's a friend with benefits sort of situation that, the Tony Manero's character has put himself in, but he's also going after this other girl, a little scummy, but that's just how he is. But she really likes him, and he likes her, and, who's he going to end up with? It's one of those kind of stories. But, great dancing. Travolta really committed to the choreography and to the dancing, and it had been a while since I'd seen this. I'd all but forgotten it. And my wife, who is a big Saturday Night Fever fan, I may have talked about it on the channel before. It's a big part of her life, as is Travolta in general. Hadn't probably seen it in so many years, but remembered all the beats from it, so it was obviously a big deal for her. But nice to see it in 4K. I appreciate that Kino is putting movies like this out in 4K. This is a Paramount movie, I can't remember how well it did at the time, but anyway, it looks good. It includes an audio commentary by film historian David Del Valle and Ed King of the Irish Film Institute, as well as an interview with actress Finola Hughes. So a couple nice features, as well as the 4K. So this is a 4K and a Blu-ray. Obviously, the Blu-ray also has that new transfer, so it will look very nice. If you don't have a 4K player yet, you want to just get for the Blu-ray, that's worth your time, absolutely. So that's Staying Alive from 83. Next up, not a 4K, but a nice Blu-ray of Hardcore. Now, this is a Paul Schrader film. Paul Schrader, still making movies now. This one is from 1979, starring George C. Scott, Peter Boyle, Susan Hubley, Dick Sargent from Bewitched, and others. And it is about a conservative businessman who ventures into the sordid underworld of pornography in California to look for his runaway teenage daughter, who ended up making porno films in L.A. They are from a very, I want to say, I can't remember the religious type area they're from, but it's Midwest. And this young girl goes on a trip with her classmates or something and ends up in LA and never comes back, and he has to go out and find her. And in doing so, he first hires a very sleazy private eye played by Peter Boyle in a pretty fun performance that I very much enjoy, who's trying to help him find his daughter. And when he can't really find her because it's difficult, even for this private eye, he himself goes undercover and places ads in the newspapers for making his own pornographic film, the guise of it. He's not actually going to do it, so that he can meet some actors who might be able to connect him with his daughter. And, he may or may not be able to do that. I'm not going to get into it, but this is an interesting follow-up to Taxi Driver. And granted, Paul Schrader did not direct Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese directed Taxi Driver, but Paul Schrader wrote it. And this is an interesting companion piece to that film in a way. Ed Begley Jr. is in this too. I forgot about that. But yeah, it's a fascinating film. It is intense, sometimes hard to watch. George C. Scott's performance is sometimes a little big, but overall you do feel his pain and that he really wants to find his daughter. This is a film that was covered in Quentin Tarantino's Cinema Speculation book, and I would venture to say that may perhaps have influenced this Kino release. This film has come out on Blu-ray before from Twilight Time, and then I have one from Indicator as well. So now we have this new Blu-ray. It doesn't mention anything about a new scan, but it says it includes an audio commentary with writer-director Paul Schrader, and then an audio commentary by film historians Eddie Friedfeld, Lee Pfeiffer, and Paul Scrabo. Paul Scrabo and Lee Pfeiffer are part of the troupe of guys that would do the Sam Peckinpah commentaries, and I always enjoyed their work there. So curious to hear that track. But yeah, this is a nice new version of it, Hardcore, and it's worth picking up if you're a fan of Paul Schrader or George C. Scott or intense underworld kind of scuzzy kind of movies. So anyway, that's Hardcore. And then after that, we're going to take a sharp turn into 1953. This is a slightly older release. Most of these are relatively recent, but this one is The Mississippi Gambler from 1953, directed by Rudolph Mattei. This one is one of several films by the name Mississippi Gambler, which I didn't realize was a very popular title as far as films go. Anyway, this is about a Mississippi gambler played by Tyrone Power, and he is a guy who's an honest gambler. He doesn't like to cheat, and he starts working the riverboats to try and make his fortune. He meets another guy who's also a gambler, played by John McIntyre, who I've mentioned him on the channel before. He is the old couple in Cloak and Dagger. He's the old man there, but he's obviously much younger in 1953. I love to see him pop up and stuff. And then there are two love interests in this movie. This character Tyrone Power plays, Mark Fallon, wants to introduce honest gambling, not rambling, that's what I'm doing, to riverboats, but he makes enemies of a wealthy family called the Duros, I think, the daughter of which... there's a brother and sister. Piper Laurie plays one of them, and she meets him right away. They have a meet cute where she does not like him and continues to not like him throughout the film, but they sort of love each other, and it's like, will they get together? Who knows? Julie Adams eventually enters the picture as another woman that he's sort of, entangled with a bit. But it's a good, enjoyable melodrama. There's some dueling, there's, tragedy, romantic complications. I enjoyed the film. The one thing I will say is there's not enough gambling in this movie called Mississippi Gambler. There's probably 3 or 4 scenes of gambling, and I was kind of hoping for, like a riverboat version of the Cincinnati Kid or something like that. And it is not that, but, Tyrone Power is good. Piper Laurie is infuriating, but good. John McIntyre is good. It's an enjoyable film. Definitely something that I would count as a low-key discovery for this year for me. So, Mississippi Gambler also includes an audio commentary by film historian Toby Rohn and the trailer. But definitely one that I'm glad I watched. So there is that. Okay, jumping back into the late 60s, we have a movie called 3 into 2 Won't Go. From 1969, this one stars Rod Steiger, Claire Bloom, Judy Geeson as the sort of main trio. And it is the story of Steve Howard, British sales executive living in Manchester, England. That is Rod Steiger, who begins an affair with a young hitchhiker. Her name's Ellie Patterson. That is played by Judy Geeson, the lovely Judy Geeson. To emotionally get away from his marriage from his wife Frances, who is played by Claire Bloom, But when Ellie moves into a room in Steve and Frances's house, he must keep up the true nature of his relationship with Elle under wraps at all costs. So it's a very complicated love triangle sort of affair movie. This one is, I think, getting a Blu-ray debut here. Doesn't seem to have been widely available to see. I haven't checked YouTube or anything, but I look at Letterboxd, which is just sort of a mean average, and only 51 people have logged this movie on Letterboxd. So that says to me that it's not widely available, probably not streaming. This may be the only way you can see it. But I've definitely been on a real fired up Rod Steiger kick ever since the Video Archives podcast kicked into gear and started playing up his work. I'm a fan of him. I've always been a fan of him, but I've come to appreciate him more in the last year. So this one intrigues me. I'm sure there's some interesting suspense in this, romance, undercover kind of affair movie. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. And I'm pretty sure Judy Geeson is supposed to be great in it. So very excited to check this one out. A late 60s film I've never heard of, 3 into 2 Won't Go. This includes a commentary with film historians Troy Horwath and Nathaniel Thompson, always a reliable duo. Then we got some Steve McQueen happening here. We'll start with Nevada Smith. This one directed by the great Henry Hathaway from 1966. And Steve McQueen stars, of course, also in the cast. It's a pretty great cast. Carl Malden, Brian Keith, Arthur Kennedy, Suzanne Plachette, Janet Margolin, Pat Hingle, Howard Da Silva, Martin Landau, Gene Evans, a few more names I definitely recognize. It's a good one, and I think I've seen it. It's been a little bit. Nevada Smith, that's Steve McQueen, is the sort of a half-breed, if you will, a son of an Indian mother and white father. And when his father's killed by 3 men over gold, he sets out to find them and kill them. The boy is taken in by a gun merchant, and the gun merchant shows him how to shoot, and to shoot on time and correct. I'm assuming that's probably Carl Malden for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, yeah, I swear I've seen this, but it's been a minute, so I'm not remembering it, and I may be crossing it with another Western that Steve McQueen did. There's one that's like right on the tip of my brain that it could be that one, but I'm thinking it's not. It was not Junior Bonner. Yeah, maybe I have. Oh, Tom Horn. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so maybe I haven't even seen this. Tom Horn is a pretty good Steve McQueen Western, by the way. So anyway, this is a neat release. It's a brand new HD master from a 4K scan of the original 35 millimeter original camera negative. And the dynamic screen presence of Steve McQueen is in full force. One of the iconic star's best and most memorable Westerns, Nevada Smith. Born in the 1890s, Nevada Smith has his life turned upside down after he finds that his parents have been murdered by vicious killers. He becomes a lone gunslinger, blinded by a compulsion for revenge, and will stop at nothing to show the killers his own brand of justice. Produced and directed by Western great Henry Hathaway, who directed True Grit and Shootout, which is a good Gregory Peck Western that came out on Blu-ray. Surrounds Steve McQueen with breathtaking landscapes and standout supporting actors like Carl Malden, Brian Keith, Arthur Kennedy, Suzanne Pleshette, Janet Margolin, Pat Hingle, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, really good cast. This has an audio commentary by C. Courtney Joyner, producer Mark Jordan Legan, and film historian Henry Park. So you get to talk to some wonderful people for this commentary track. I swear I'd seen this, but maybe not. I'm very excited to check this one out now that I'm hearing it. I'm going to put this aside as a potential discovery to see if I've actually watched it. But that's Nevada Smith. Then we have another Steve McQueen. We have Hell is for Heroes. This is directed by the great Don Siegel from 1962. It's a World War II drama where the action centers around a single maneuver by a squad of GIs in retaliation against the force of the German Siegfried Line. Reese, that is John Reese, interestingly, sounds familiar for Terminator fans, joins a group of wary GIs, that's Steve McQueen, of course, unexpectedly ordered back into the line when on their way to a rest area, while most of the men withdraw from their positions facing a German pillbox at the far side of the minefield. Half a dozen men are left to protect a wide front. By various ruses, they manage to convince the Germans they are a large force still holding the position. I'm not going to go any further in this plot synopsis because there's some stuff here in terms of where this goes. It doesn't stay on the battlefield. It goes away from the battlefield for some other ramifications. I do remember that I saw this a long time ago. I can't really remember it very well, but Steve McQueen uses a flamethrower in it, and I remember in the commentary for Rushmore, there is one point where Wes Anderson mentions that one of his stage productions, I think the one that's like a Vietnam War movie, he has one of his actors brandishing a flamethrower, and that is a direct line, or at least he seemed to mention it as a direct influence from Hell is for Heroes, where Steve McQueen uses a flamethrower, I guess. So I need to check that out. Okay, so that's Hell is for Heroes from 1962. This includes an audio commentary by filmmaker and historian Steve Mitchell, combat films, American realism author Stephen J. Rubin as well, the two of them together in commentary. Okay, so that is Hell is for Heroes. Moving on to something much more recent from 2002, a movie called Terminal Invasion. Now, Terminal Invasion, caught that right in the mouth, is directed by Sean S. Cunningham of Friday the 13th fame. It stars Bruce Campbell, Chase Masterson, and some other folks I don't recognize. Bruce Campbell's really the Sarah LaFleur. Bruce Campbell, pretty much the centerpiece of this movie. What I've heard about this one, and I have not seen it yet, is it's sort of a, and no offense meant to the film, but a low-rent version of The Thing. I'm guessing the back will corroborate that. From legendary Bruce Campbell, star of Evil Dead and Bubba Hotep, and horror movie maven Sean S. Cunningham, director of the Friday the 13th and Deep Star 6, comes an unrelenting assault of extraterrestrial terror. Terminal Invasion. Inside an isolated airport, 7 anxious passengers learn that their charter flight has been grounded by a blizzard. The unhappy passengers are soon stunned into silence by the arrival of Jack Edwards, that's Campbell, a convicted murderer escorted by 2 guards, but these soon prove to be the least of the passengers' problems as they realize that some members of the group are not who or what they seem. Fasten your seatbelts for a pulse-pounding sci-fi thrill ride co-starring Chase Masterson. Yeah, so that does sound a bit like The Thing in some sense. So that's kind of cool to see a Thing knockoff with music by Harry Manfredini, of course, from Friday the 13th fame. This has an audio commentary by director Sean S. Cunningham and executive producer Chuck Simon, and an alien costume test bit. So definitely one that's been off my radar, but curious to see another Bruce Campbell film. I always enjoy his work, so bring it on. Terminal Invasion from 2002. Just a few more here. We have going way back to 1950. This is one that I know my podcast partner Elric is a big fan of. I don't know if I've seen it. It is directed by the great Ida Lupino, actor, filmmaker, one of the pioneering female film directors of her era and a great actor in her own right. This one stars Mala Powers, Todd Andrews, Robert Clark, and I'll just read the back for the synopsis here. Remastered in HD by Paramount, by the way, from a 4K scan of the 35mm fine grain. Looking forward to seeing that. Directed by pioneering actress, filmmaker Ida Lupino, The Hitchhiker, The Bigamist. This controversial classic Outrage was one of the first Hollywood films of its era to deal with the subject of rape. Mala Powers stars as Ann Walton, a young bookkeeper freshly engaged to her boyfriend Jim Owens, but her promising life unravels completely when on her way home from work one evening she is raped. The trauma of the attack shatters her sense of identity and forces her to flee from home in shame. Praised by Martin Scorsese as a subdued behavioral study that captures the banality of evil in an ordinary small town. Outrage is a unique and vital film noir that addresses the widespread and unquestioned violence that women face with remarkable sensitivity. In 2020, Lupino's landmark achievement was deemed, quote, a culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant work of art and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. So very curious to check this out, and it sounds like an intense, like it says, powerful movie. I'm excited here. It has an audio commentary by film historian Imogen Sarah Smith, one of the great film commentators, and always wonderful with film noir, where I find she is almost unparalleled in her expertise, and I really enjoy her commentary track. So I very much look forward to hearing it and gaining even more context for this landmark film, Outrage from 1950. And then lastly, we have the Audie Murphy Collection, Volume 2. This includes 3 films: Destry from 1954, Kansas Raiders from 1950, and Sierra from 1950. So this is neat that they're doing these sets. There's another one coming up that has some great ones that are, I believe, Tarantino favorites as well. But so here's Destry, Kansas Raiders, and Sierra. I'll go through these individually. Destry, 1954. Ruthless gambler Decker and his cronies are causing unrest in the sleepy frontier town of Restful. Unfortunate name. After the local sheriff dies under mysterious circumstances, Decker arranges to have the town drunk. Thomas Mitchell, always a good sympathetic drunk, appointed sheriff, thinking he will be easily controlled, but the new sheriff sends for Tom Destry, Audie Murphy, son of the famous two-fisted lawman, to be his deputy. When Tom arrives, he isn't exactly swaggering, the swaggering hero the sheriff had in mind. In fact, Destry doesn't even carry a gun, but the new deputy's mild exteriors mask a wild determination to see justice done, as Decker and the other locals soon discover. Directed by George Marshall, Destry is a glorious Technicolor retelling of Marshall's own 1939 gem, Destry Rides Again. I thought that sounded very, very familiar, and I'm a huge, huge fan of Destry Rides Again. That, I think, got a Criterion Blu-ray. Great Jimmy Stewart movie where it's the same plot, basically. He is brought in as this deputy who doesn't carry a gun, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how is this going to go? How is he not going to get killed? And how it plays out is just fantastic, which is one of the reasons I love it. So I'm curious to see this remake. And Marlene Dietrich is the other star of Destry Rides Again. Okay, so this is from 54. Audio commentary by film critic, author Lee Gambin, and actor, film historian Gary Frank. So that is Destry to start out this collection. Then we have Kansas Raiders. Kansas Raiders from 1950. The furious fighting story of Quantrill's guerrillas during the Civil War, young Jesse James, Audie Murphy, and his brother Frank, Richard Long, and their soon-to-be legendary gang ride into Kansas on the trail of Colonel William Quantrill, Brian Dunleavy, always a good villain. Seeking revenge against the Union, Jesse wants to join Quantrill's raiders, who are plotting to claim Kansas for the Confederacy. The more time Jesse spends with Quantrill, however, the more he realizes that the Colonel isn't a hero fighting for the South, but a bushwhacking madman. Again, a great role for Mr. Dunleavy. Directed by Ray Enright, Kansas Raiders blazes with bold Technicolor and brilliant supporting performances by Marguerite Chapman, Scott Brady, Tony Curtis, Richard Arlen, James Best, Roscoe P. Coltrane, and Dewey Martin. Okay, so that sounds interesting. This is got an audio commentary by C. Courtney Joyner and film historian Henry Park. So nice extras here. Again, these transfers aren't commented on, but I'm assuming they're relatively new. On to the final one, and that is Sierra from 1950 as well. Adventure raging to the very peaks of excitement. Ring Hassard, Audie Murphy, and his father, Jeff, Dean Jagger, live in a hidden mountain valley where they capture and tame wild horses. When Ring comes to the rescue of Riley Martin, Wanda Hendricks, a lawyer who lost her way on the trail, it leads to a romance between them, but also opens an investigation into Jeff's shadowy past. So his dad has got some secrets, I guess. Even more trouble comes when they encounter a gang of horse thieves led by the dastardly Big Matt Rango, Richard Rober. Directed by Alfred E. Green in dazzling Technicolor, Sierra features a villainous early role for Tony Curtis, again, and jolly performance by Burl Ives, who performs several frontier ballads, and Hendricks, who was married to Murphy at the time, makes a fierce and fetching heroine. Very cool. Audie Murphy's wife in this. And Burl Ives and an evil Tony Curtis. So I'm into that. A nice entry in the Audie Murphy collection series, and I'm looking forward to the next set as well. So that's it for this round of Kino titles. I hope to have more for you in the very near future. Thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.